We're going to keep you safe overnight tonight. We have no warnings in the viewing area, but we're just wanting to say, hey, come on in, hang with us tonight. We're going to get you through the storms that are moving through. We do have thunderstorms that are passing by. You see Ryan and Brian on standby. Tawana's coming in just a bit. She'll be out in the Wave 3 New Storm Tracker. It's already on the roads, in fact. We had a report of a lightning strike to a home. It went there, couldn't find anything. Police, fire, they had all left the scene. That was over in J-Town. That's come and gone. The Wave 3 New Storm Tracker is out on the road. The roads are wet because of the rain that you see pushing through the area with thunderstorms that continue. We have wet roads, and that's about it for now, but we're not finished. In fact, we haven't even really started with the storms that will be moving through. We're going to sort of ping pong around to the entire team here coming up in just a second, because as I take a wider view, you can see the thunderstorms and the warnings, both severe thunderstorm to our north and tornado warnings out to our west. Yeah, this is the real deal. It's an outbreak. It's been going on all evening. And as I zoom the radar out, I want to point out that while we have no warnings here, they're knocking on our door. And we've seen these storms push across parts of northeast Arkansas, western parts of Tennessee, West Kentucky, and now they're making their way closer to central Kentucky. These storms have produced and are still producing tornadoes that are on the ground. We've had damage, major damage in some of these areas across the entire region. Once again, no warnings right now, but as we take a closer view, the thunderstorm warnings that sit just to the north of us include Greene, Martin, Monroe, and Owen counties of Indiana. Again, radar indicated the threat's considerable. Strong winds with all of these storms that are pushing through the area tonight. And again, the tornado warning sitting just across parts of Ohio County for us. That will continue to move closer to parts of Breckenridge and Grayson counties within the next half hour. These storms are moving fast, generally at about 45 to 55 miles per hour. So let's just sort of give you a recap of what has happened tonight. Ryan Hoke's been here since noon today. Brian Good was here very early, and then a little bit of sleep and back in here. And we're all here for the overnight hours tonight. Again, for the next 5, 6, 7 hours, we're just going to sort of digest the data with you so you can see what's happening. So there's no reason to turn away. We'll be here if you take a nap and wake back up. Set the alarm if the storms approach and your phones wake you up or the weather radio wakes you up. Just turn us on. We're going to be here to keep you updated. Again, Brian Good, let's swing over. The closest threat to us would be the tornado warnings that we're watching back down across Ohio and Edmonson counties.
Yeah, that's one that's been on the ground, of course, for a while that we've been tracking. That has been a long-lasting one, tracking to the northeast. That's also a good sign there that it is, of course, likely going to be able to at least take advantage of the environment. Now, what we normally would say is, okay, wait a minute, we have thunderstorms into Meade County and Hardin County into Bullitt and even here in Louisville. Will that disrupt it? In this kind of scenario, there looks to be just enough of a gap here. It likely will keep on going on a northeast track, and some of the most high-res data we've been looking at today has been hinting, in fact, that that would indeed be the case, that this type of setup that would feature one that would keep going for a longer time across areas of, say, very close to the Ohio River. What you're looking at here is rotation markers we can track, and they don't last very long. They only last with the actual storm itself. We saw we had that one storm that started to rotate as it got close to Louisville, and of course that led to the warning getting issued as it got closer into the metro area on the southern side there. And this is the one that really stands out, but notice the motion here to the north and east, so just north of Butler County. And then if we see how this plays out for Breckenridge and into portions there of Meade as we head to the next, I would say, 1 hour, especially. These things are moving pretty fast here. That's going to be obviously the saving grace is they're moving fast, but at the same time, they can also produce a tremendous amount of wind. What we're really going to really struggle with a bit here tonight as far as information is we don't have really high population areas in this particular zone, Kevin. So storm reports are a bit tougher to get in that area of Kentucky, Breckenridge County, Meade County, southern areas of Crawford, and into Harrison County. So we have to rely not only on the radar data, but our emergency managers. They do a great job, but usually we don't get notified of anything as far as damage until 911 calls are made, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes those reports are delayed. So that's the reason why in Louisville, even if we see a change in the warning status as that cell moves northeast, just be alert that if we get information suddenly about what has happened to our southwest, that could still affect us even here in the Louisville metro. We see this quite often. Let's hope that it ends up falling apart. But just kind of give you an idea of our process, if you will, of how we're going to get through this over the next hour especially.
Yeah, and when you look at some of the storms that are on the radar, some of them have been on there all night long. I mean, this one supercell that we've been tracking back out to our west. Brian, make sure I'm in play mode, will you? As we take a closer look at that storm back out across the central part of Kentucky, that's where we've had this storm on the ground all the way through the overnight hours. So it started in parts of Arkansas near Jonesboro, continues to make its way closer to us. Let me zoom back out. This is the video. Again, apartment complex here. We saw this at 11 o'clock. And Ryan, I want to bring you in because you've been keeping an eye on the damage that's been falling across parts of Arkansas, western Kentucky. I was just sent a picture from the courthouse in Mayfield, Kentucky. Again, this may not translate very well on TV, but I'm going to try. Yeah, tough to see, but that's the courthouse that has been pretty much demolished in Mayfield, Kentucky. So back out to the western parts of Kentucky. That's not the only damage we've had. Ryan, when we were talking just before the 11 o'clock show, we have had 2 fatalities in parts of Arkansas.
Yeah, Monette, Arkansas is what we're talking about there. If we can take Max 3 full, I know that might be a tall order here, but we'll get to it when you can. We'll
Matanzas,
all
Centertown,
of the tornado
get ready.
reports that you see at this point. Northeast Arkansas there, Monette, is where we saw that tornado rip through a mobile home community there. And that mobile home community, or not mobile home, I should say, is a nursing home. That's where 5 people were injured. 2 are dead from that tornado. And that's one of just very many tornadoes that we've had overnight tonight so far. This is a real live tornado outbreak in the middle of December, affecting parts of the Mississippi River Valley and now into the lower Ohio Valley. Our concern continues to elevate overnight. And Kevin, what just hit my phone here was a notification for folks to watch the severe weather live stream that we're putting on here all night long on the Wave 3 News Weather app, the Wave 3 News app, Facebook Live, and of course our streaming channels, our TV apps, if you will.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere tonight. We'll be here to keep you updated as we roll throughout the next several hours. Folks will be waking up. This doesn't guarantee severe weather in your backyard. Doesn't guarantee we're going to have tornadoes even in the viewing area. But what it does guarantee is that we want to make sure in this season where people are coming home from holiday parties, they're looking to an overnight in the middle of December, and they think, man, there's no chance of severe weather like that. That never happens. It's rare. It does happen on occasion, hasn't happened in a while, but the fact is because of its rarity, we want to make sure we have a place for you to turn to, and that's going to be right here. So let me just zoom out. I'm going to go back to our camera view. We're going to take it home here. As we go back to the home view, you're going to notice we do have now we have a tornado warning, and this is coming out from Breckinridge County. So here we go, right on time. Boy, we couldn't have pegged this any closer. This is now a tornado warning for Breckinridge, Grayson, and Hancock counties. It includes Hardinsburg, Irvington, and Patesville. This is an observed tornado. It's on the ground. Okay, this is the same tornado that we've been tracking from Arkansas. Took down the nursing home. It's the same tornado that went through Mayfield that ripped the roof off of and did considerable damage to the, and you're looking at the nursing home. And this is over in northeast Arkansas. Emergency crews are on the scene. Notice the roof completely peeled off. This is a serious situation that is devastating. So back to the radar we go. And I'll point out that this is the same storm that's moving through. Again, the source, it's observed. It's not radar indicated. Obviously, we can see it on the radar, but the reason the warning is out is because it's been noted. The threat is considerable. Affected by this, over 7,000 people within just Breckinridge County alone. All right, now I'm going to go back to the wider view. Again, Breckinridge County, you have time. This is the time to prepare. You've got to get to the lowest level, away from windows. Now's a great time to take those tornado precautions. Breckinridge County, you need to be in your tornado safe place. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go to the radar, take the lightning off so we can see the storm a little better. And as we zoom back in to that whole complex of storms to the south, what you're going to notice will be the intense velocity in this storm. I'm going to zoom in pretty tight. Again, this part of the storm is outside of the viewing area. This is in McLean and Muhlenberg County. As we take our tools and look at the velocity, we can do that a number of ways. I'm going to do it with the scope. You're going to see the very sharp I mean, just north of Central City, Sacramento, Kentucky. This is where we're talking about. This is right along US 431. That's the intersection. This is where we have the tornado that's on the ground. Moving north of Central City, follow my hand, it's going to approach Beta. This is about the third or fourth storm you had to deal with tonight. This storm is a monster. It has produced and is producing a tornado. It is moving off to the northeast. This storm is moving at about 55 miles an hour. So as fast as you'd be driving down the highway, this storm is moving that fast. We see that the gate-to-gate shear, the rotation in this is incredible, and it continues to move off to the north and east. Again, this tornado warning, where the tornado actually is now, is in Ohio County, very close to the viewing area. Will continue to move into and through Ohio County, and then eventually into parts of Breckinridge County. I'm going to pan this over so you can see the Breckinridge County warning. Again, bear with me as we jog the radar. Plenty of lead time. The Weather Service is, again, being proactive, putting the warnings out, saying, hey, wake up if you're in Breckinridge County. This storm is on the ground, doing damage, has been for hours. Let's go over to Brian Good.
All right, thanks, Kevin. You're right. It has been on the ground for hours, and we are able to track certainly the pathway. This is we're issuing this warnings a little bit downstream. Now, I want you to notice here as we go over to graphics 2, we'll be able to see where that warning is. In fact, now what I'm going to do is actually remove on Max 2, take off the lightning aspect of this, and we're going to look just at just the rotation alone, and that's right around portions there as you get to Sandy, to about Stroud itself, Central City. I mean, that's a very popular spot. So is Central Town, and head toward Beaver Dam, Kentucky. But that rotation is very much wrapped up. That rotation is in a very tightly bound fashion. Let me try to get what we call a better idea of what we call the gate-to-gate type of scenario here with this as we get closer to it. And as we look at that, we're getting, gate-to-gate of 132 miles per hour right now, at least showing up. I'll keep sampling the area, Kevin, but there's no doubt that this thing, if it's not on the ground, it is certainly at least rotating not far from it at the moment.
Yeah, and the fact is, I mean, we've seen it on the ground. We've seen the damage. We have to just assume that it is just scraping the ground as it moves through. In fact, we'll continue to check with law enforcement down across Ohio County and Muhlenberg County, where we've seen the latest reflectivity and the latest velocity coming in. And as this storm moves into Breckinridge County, again, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. Just the history of this storm alone says that it is capable of producing some massive damage. If you're just joining us on Wave 3, the television, we have been on our digital platforms. That's Roku, Fire Stick, Facebook, all of our apps. We're going to be on all night. I don't suspect we're going to go anywhere even at this point, but as we roll through the night, I think we're going to have a number of warnings that come out. This happens to be the first. It has the potential to be the worst, to be honest, because it has been on the ground for just hours and hours. It did that damage out across northeast Arkansas, western Kentucky. Now it's moving across Ohio County and will soon be approaching Breckinridge County. Right now, the tornado sirens are going off across Breckinridge County. The weather is not all that bad just now, but you don't have a whole lot of time. Why? This storm's moving at 55 miles per hour. As that storm moves into Breckinridge County, it's going to pack a punch with strong winds. The potential for that tornado that has been observed, considerable threats persist with all of these storms that move through. But again, that is one we're watching. I'm going to move the camera back up so we can take a closer view of that reflectivity and then inside the storm. And you can see they're sort of trimming the back edge of that tornado warning. That's a good position for it. And then we'll track it as it gets across the county line. Again, Breckinridge County, Ohio County. So let's go back inside the storm. We'll take a look as we just zoom in just a bit more, because I want you to be able to see that strong shear that we see, the velocity, the wind inside that storm. And I'm just going to move it out of the way so it doesn't trigger that severe thunderstorm warning. Tornado warning is far more imminent. So there we go. And we should see that rotation right there. So we go back to our tools, we grab the velocity scope, and I'm just going to pop that on right here. And you're going to see just the intense velocity that we have going on. Boom. You can't miss it. This is where it is near Small House, just right along 431. It was crossing that. It's just past it. You can see near Livermore. Not far from Beaver Dam. It's going to move very close. It should move just north of Beaver Dam for folks that know that area. And again, approaching Beaver Dam to Beta, right along I-165. And then it takes its aim toward Fordsville and then pushes across the county line into Breckenridge County. Again, this is so serious because of what has unfolded tonight. I'm going to show you a regional radar view. This is one cluster of storms that's moving through. This has the potential, obviously, to produce tornadoes. We'll have another line that's behind it. So there will be a lull and then another line that will be capable, once again, of producing severe weather, possibly severe thunderstorm warnings or tornado warnings along that secondary line. There could even be a third line developed, but by that point we should have exhausted the atmosphere. But nonetheless, these first two moving through pose a real threat to all of us overnight tonight. Right now, the main threat is across just outside of the viewing area, but preliminarily warned is Breckenridge County. Let's go over to Brian Good, who's looking at some of the heights on this storm. Brian, rare scenario here for, December to see an event like this here in the Ohio Valley at this time of night.
Yeah, we don't see it very often, and even these type of setups in, say, March or even April would get our attention, but let alone a couple of weeks there before Christmas. You're looking at the storm sideways here, and I'm focused on the lowest at about really 5,000 feet or so of the storm itself, and what we're looking at is where you see those greens that are showing up, the brighter greens with the very bright pink, if you will, kind of correlating where there is that rotation being found right there. And again, that's just north of the center area. Anytime we see those two just lined up like that, it's basically the same as, well, let me just hold this pencil or pen to my hand. Basically, you got wind blowing toward the storm that we're able to track from the radar beam, and we got wind blowing away. We measure that by using green for blowing toward the radar and red from away. And if you were to take that pen and you put it real close together, and then we get those colors right up on each other, you see what happens to the pen. It begins to spin, and it's the type of tool that we have with the radar, which is really great because again, it's the darkness of night. We don't have spotters on the ground, so we use that tool to try to determine how close they are. And these two ideas here are very, very close, and that's something we'll be watching that carefully as we continue to see that rotation evolve. And Kevin, it's worth mentioning, we should get better data on this too as it gets closer to the radar, which is located at Fort Knox. So that's going to help put that in a little more perspective as it gets a little more into Breckenridge County.
Yeah, and while we do have some spotters out there, you bring up a good point. It is not a safe time to chase storms. We want no one to go out and try to risk chasing at night unless you're a trained spotter or even a meteorologist. So please don't worry about going out and getting the visual on it. Trust us when we say we've been tracking it all night. We've seen the damage. If it's not good enough to see what's happening by radar and by what we know here, take a look at some of these images that have been coming in throughout the night. Across northeast Arkansas, western Kentucky, demolished homes, businesses completely with their roofs peeled off. 2 people dead from this complex, a nursing home facility across northeast Arkansas, not far from Jonesboro. So you're looking at the mass response to make sure that the rest, these numbers are only going to go up because of what you see. So that's what we're dealing with. This is an apartment complex where they had a visual on the storm, plenty of lightning. Not very much hail with these storms, but there has been a tremendous amount of wind. And if you look at the lightning flashes, that's one of the few ways we can really see if there is even a funnel that's touching the ground. Sometimes it's illuminated by lightning. What we have going on here is no warnings for Louisville. We have rain falling. In southern Indiana, we now have a tornado warning across Davis, Greene, Knox, and Sullivan counties, again, just outside of the viewing area, just across the state line from Illinois into Indiana. That should stay to our north. What won't stay to our north is the warning that we have across our viewing area, and that's down into Hardinsburg. So I'm going to zoom back in. Again, it's just a constant check and recheck of the data. As the radar scan goes around, it's valuable information that comes back to us every time that thing scans around. Because here's what's happening. When we look at the radar, we can see a number of things. This shows us the reflectivity, what's sort of bouncing back to the radar, how much rain there is there hail, is it hitting something hard and bouncing back, is it hitting heavy rain and bouncing back, shades the darker colors. What we want to really know this time of night is, what about the wind? And we do that by looking as I stop the radar, which was stopped anyway. So let me go back to the tools, the velocity scope we go. And as I look inside this storm, we're looking for that red and green together. Remember Brian was pointing out, you get it together, the greens are going toward the radar, the reds away. That's where we have that couplet. It's moving right toward Beta, right along I-165, just north of Prentice, just north of the Western Kentucky Parkway, just past Central City. It's going to cross over as it continues moving off to the northeast at about 55 miles per hour in a very favorable zone still to keep its rotation going. So this is sort of leading the pack, if you will. And that storm will continue moving. That's the tornado warning. That's where the tornado is right now. Where it will go is into Breckinridge County. And we have the tornado warning for Breckinridge, extreme northern and western parts of Grayson County. And there you see the sort of being re-upped there, and it just continues is what that means. So the tornado warning continues for Breckinridge, Grayson, and Hancock counties. It includes Hardinsburg. Again, it's still observed, still capable of a considerable threat. So you've got to take complete care and understanding in getting to the safe place. If you have friends or family in Breckinridge County, good time to wake them up, let them know what's coming their way, have them turn the television on. If they lose power, at least you told them where to go first. Ryan?
Just got off the phone with the Ohio County Sheriff Dispatch, and they say at this time they don't have any additional damage reports to pass along. I was just looking at the debris signature there, Kevin, and it is re-deepened in the last scan there. That's Max 3 that you see on your screen there. That blue dot right in the middle has re-intensified over the town of Beta. This is just north and west of Beaver Dam again. This is in Ohio County, moving toward our counties, Kev.
All right, so again, it's an observed tornado. This is something that's extremely important. And in fact, can you punch up 3 behind me then? If not, that's okay. We can, well, in fact, don't worry about it. I can do it here. So let me just go back to the debris. And I want to explain what Ryan was mentioning while I can point to it. The radar can also show us, in a way, obviously I've got the lightning on here, but this little blue dot, see all the colors that are surrounding it? And that one sort of stands out. That's an anomaly. That means something there that shouldn't be. And oftentimes it is debris. That's an indicator that that storm, that tornado, is on the ground. So we don't always have to have a pair of eyes on it. If you can see the debris from the radar, which that's apparent, it's north of Hartford. It's going to cross over 231, just outside of our viewing area. This storm has been on the ground. It's produced tornadoes. It's produced damage. It's killed people. It's on the way. It's going to move across Ohio County, and it's going to move right into the far western side of Breckinridge County. Now, whether it maintains its intensity, you know, it sort of throttles up and down. That's the way these work. It's been throttled up more than not, and it certainly deserves attention. And I'm going to go back to the radar view here. That's what it looks like in terms of reflectivity, some very heavy rain. And by looking at that, you can't pick out a whole lot. But when you go into the debris field or you go into the velocity, I'm just going to pop full velocity on here, you can see where we have that rotation. So by the rotation we have it, by the debris field it looks like we have, that would be indicative of a tornado on the ground. Sunnydale is next in line. That's a place that you don't have much time if you're there. Let's go over to Brian. Brian?
All right. Thanks, Kevin. A quick update here on this particular cell again, and we're watching not only just the different signatures we can get from radar data, especially when it comes to larger objects, especially metal, begins to show up in those debris field signatures there. This is looking at the wind fields, still seeing it located north of Beaver Dam. Now, let me add on the warning, because again, these warnings like this, we don't see this too often on tornado warnings, but they do extend out pretty far, all the way into the eastern side there of Breckinridge County. For that reason, it's moving at 65 miles per hour. So some towns again in path here: Axtell, Hardinsburg, certainly Fordsville, even Yemen, be on guard, because you're right close there on the southern side of where that circulation is. I was looking at some of the data we've been trending here. We were able to at least look at some of the modeling when it tries to pick out some of these supercells, and this is a model run from a little earlier that picked up on that supercell forming. It takes it right into Breckinridge County, at least the northern part of it, and notice what it tries to do. It tries to fade it out once it gets closer to the metro. It's not a guarantee that's going to happen, but I like that signal, and I hope that's the true reality we get get here. But it is remarkable how well the modeling did on picking out the idea that that cell is moving in that direction to the northeast. So we're very confident that this is going to hold together at least into the Breckenridge County area.
And when you think about that modeling, I mean, that was way back this morning. I mean, for something to even see that would be potential, that's incredible.
Yeah, and we're going to be analyzing that over and over because it's got more updates to come throughout the overnight. So if we see other signatures like that, we'll let you know. But certainly the first round here anyway, we hope it's the last, but we know that no better than say that at this point. But this round in particular, this is the main supercell that looks like it has a good chance to go through at least Breckenridge County, and let's hope it fades after that.
Yeah, certainly pulsing back up. It is definitely in an intensifying stage now. We can see that looking at the reflectivity. We can see that looking at the velocity, which is on here. So this storm, again, remember we said the throttle up and down. It sort of goes through its cycle, and then it might weaken a little bit, but then, boom, it catches a nice wind field, and it strengthens back up. And that's what we're seeing with this storm. Look how fast it's moving. I told you, Sunnydale did not have much time. It's on your doorstep. It's there. Now, again, this is just outside of our viewing area, but what is not, we'll go back to the radar view here, and then I'll go back to our home view. Let me put the scope on so I can use that in a second, and then back to the home view. But and what I want to point out is that while the storm is still several miles just to the west of the viewing area, as Brian mentioned, it's moving so fast, 55 to 60 miles an hour. It's not going to take it long to move into Breckenridge County, and that's why you have to have a plan. You have to be in your tornado safe place. You have to know that we anticipated a wild night tonight. It's why we're all here. It's why we had staggered schedules all day long to make sure we were here when this happened so we could be here for you. And again, whether this weakens or not as it moves closer to the Louisville area, that's just one storm. We have a lot of storms back out to the west. These storms to our north have the ability to intensify. So while this is the one we're watching and it's getting most of our attention now, trust me when I say we're looking at all of these storms that have the potential to rotate across southern Indiana as well as those back across western Kentucky, into Illinois, and back down into even parts of Arkansas. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke.
Okay, we are tracking right now Du Bois County. We've had a carport that's been flipped over onto a telephone pole, and what I've got pulled up there is the wind velocities moving into southwest Orange County. This is not under a warning at this point, but I want you folks to know we're keeping an eye on this storm in southern Indiana as well. We've got 3 meteorologists in here right now tracking all the storms going on across wave country. So just wanted to let you know that those damaging winds are trying to move into the southwest part of parts of Orange County at the moment.
You know, Ryan, good point there, too, is that not all these storms are going to be tornadic. We have the ability to produce straight-line winds. There's no warning with the Du Bois County storm, but the Weather Service, they're keeping an eye on the reports that we have, and we're sending them to the Weather Service. So the point is, I wouldn't be surprised, and I was saying this just before we went to Ryan, for additional warnings to start coming out along this line, too. We're going to start to see the winds pick up. That low-level jet just above the surface of the earth is really starting to ramp up. And as that happens and we tap into some of those strong winds aloft with thunderstorms and that heavy rain that brings it down, we're going to see some powerful winds hit the surface of the earth. And as that happens, we're going to see some wind damage. In fact, there's probably a greater chance for just straight-line wind damage than there would be with just tornadoes themselves. So we'll have to watch not only all of this that we see on the radar, but all of this that we see back out to our west as well. So we've got really 2 distinct and defined lines of storms that will be moving through. Here in Louisville, there are no warnings at this point. That's likely to change. Again, in the city, we're seeing the rain. We've got the tornado warnings back out to our west, and of course the one down in Hardinsburg. Let me just grab the tools. We'll go back to our velocity scope, and then I'm going to go to the camera. We'll pan down. We've got the velocity on already. And let me just zoom in. So we'll zoom back into Breckenridge County. The storm is getting closer to you. We've been on for a while talking about this tornado warning for Breckenridge County. Well, the fact is the storm's just now pushing across the county line, and the strongest of the storm is still to your west. That said, it's moving fast. And the whole point was to give you enough time to react, to wake up, to get in your tornado safe place. It's where you should be. You can see, not too far from Beta, Bell's Run. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit, center this up. This is where we have the rotation. You see sort of the polygon being redrawn. And at this point, it's just for Ohio County. Now, don't get me wrong, that's the one that was just redrawn. You can see that Breckenridge County remains under the tornado warning. So back to the tool. Ryan, your mic is on. Let me go back to the velocity scope. And Ryan's on the phone with some of the dispatch centers across the area, so we'll be getting a report from that. Let me go back to the velocity scope. And there we go. I'm just going to turn on the full velocity. And again, there it is, sort of pulsed back up just off to the east of I-165. This will be moving across Ohio County and near Van Zant. We should see the cross of that storm. Brian, again, is looking inside the storm. Brian, let's get a diagnosis from you.
Yeah, first off, Ryan, you have...
Yeah, I've got some information in
Yes.
here from the Ohio County Sheriff's Dispatch. They say that some power lines are down right now. They don't have anything further than that at this point. We would expect a lot more out of them once we get a little bit more damage reports into that dispatch center and through to us here.
All right, good point again to make sure you have everything charged up
Exactly.
before the power goes out. All right, and it happens that you do lose power. We're streaming right now, so you have a way to get the information. All right, let's talk about some times because, again, this is the core kind of branch out into Breckinridge County. Counting down here, if the speed holds at 65 miles per hour, it'd be right around the Yemen area in about 9 minutes. Van Zant around 11 minutes from now as we head towards Short Creek, about 14 minutes, and Indian Valley about 16 minutes will be next. Just again, a big reminder here of where to go. Hopefully you have an option here to get into a basement if that's the case. Some of you do not have that, especially when it comes to flooding here in Ohio Valley. I totally understand that. But even if you can get into just an interior room, and a bathroom is a great place. I don't know how many times I've seen photos after storm damage, and the bathroom is pretty much the only room that is left standing just because of all the pipes in that room that keep those walls intact. Just grab your family, the dog and the cat, hamster, whatever you need, and get in there and grab some blankets and get into that bathtub and just kind of wait it out until the storm has passed. All right, looking at the big board right now, Kevin, this is still the main warning. We're watching into wave country. We've got 31 minutes left on it for portions of really now focusing on Breckinridge County.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Breckinridge, Grayson, you remain under the tornado warning. The latest word coming out from the National Weather Service is this is a large and confirmed tornado that is on the ground. It's extremely dangerous. It's located about 9 miles just to the northeast of Hartford, and you can see that it's moving northeast at a very rapid pace, 60 miles an hour. So you don't have a lot of time once you get close to the storm. It's why the warning goes so far out. It goes across the entire county of Breckinridge County, from Hardinsburg down to McCoy, close to Short Creek. So if you're familiar with Rough River Lake area down in Grayson County, you just go back up into Breckinridge County and boom, that's where you'll find it. Pushing through Van Zant, McCoy, Hardinsburg, Rosetta, that's the area of concern. At this point, we have Ohio County with about 3,500 the K Energy folks without power. So we have power outages. Ryan was talking to the Sheriff's Department there and all of our emergency contacts that we have, and you're going to notice more and more power will be reported out. It's another thing about having storms late at night. We don't always get the reports as rapidly as we would during the daytime. So many things are closed. So many people are asleep. Reporting becomes a lot more scarce. And that's another danger with storms like this, because we could have a tornado on the ground and we may not know it for a while. Other than looking at the radar, this one's a little different because we've had spotters that have seen this tornado. You're also going to notice that we have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings that surround us back out to the west. Those will have the ability to produce some very strong winds too. So even if tonight, as the night unfolds, if you get put under a severe thunderstorm warning instead of a tornado warning, you're going to have to put the same plan into action, because the wind speeds are the crazy part of the whole thing. We tap into those very powerful winds just above the clouds. We're talking about major winds coming right down to the surface. And regardless if they're straight line winds or tornadic winds with rotation, they're going to cause some major damage, and they're going to cause some power outages. Make sure you have your devices charged. Not everybody's going to need them, but there will be places that certainly experience some of the issues that we've had. Once again, that tornado warning continues. I'll just put on the velocity once again so you can see where the rotation is now. It should be just across parts. There it is. So it's moving fast. Van Zant, just minutes away. I'd say within the next 5-10 minutes, it's going to be crossing over that county line into Breckinridge County. So we don't have a lot more time. This storm has had a history of producing some major damage. So that's, again, it's sort of good and bad, right? Like, we know that it's producing damage, so you've got to take it seriously. Sometimes we look at the reflectivity, the velocity, and we say, boy, it's radar indicated. Not today. It's observed. This one is on the ground. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. Let the storm pass. There will be others that move through. Find a way to get the warnings. Keep it tuned to Wave 3. We're going to be here. All right, so that's where we're tracking the storm. It's just about into the viewing area, and that's what we have. We have a number of ways that we're getting information tonight. We have from our newsroom that's making phone calls. Ryan's making calls, checking all of our social streams. We're working hand in hand with the National Weather Service. And let's go over to Brian Good for some of the latest on that. I see, what's the deal with the trailers? I see something come out. Mobile homes? Was this, or is it a spotter, train spotter?
It looks like, yeah, train spotter reporting there some of the wind fields on that, and
like 62 miles an hour, I see.
62, yeah, that's going to be back there and closer to the I-55 area, it looks like,
okay,
when I can gather on that. What I'm going to show you guys, a couple things. First off, I've got the lightning turned on so you can see the concentration of lightning right in the core of that supercell. That tells us how intense they are. When we see that lightning count begin to drop, that's a good sign. That tells us everything's weakening. But what you see in that red shade, that is all the fuel that this bad boy, if you will, can have to steal. And supercells, especially like this, like to be stingy. They want to steal all they can. So the flow trying to be pulled in here is from a lot of fuel that's sitting across the rest of Grayson County down into Warren County and Butler County. But there are cells trying to fill that gap in and steal it. And if that continues to build, that may try to disrupt the cell. And that may be the reason why the modeling did not show it going much further than, say, northeast areas of Breckenridge County, because it's betting on the idea that there will be some activity forming here across areas of Grayson County all the way into, again, Butler County, Hart County, perhaps even southern Hardin. Now, the downside to that is that these cells, you know, they're babies now, they're new development. They can easily grow enough scale and become severe. So we need to watch those as well. But at least in the next, I would say, 30 to 45 minutes, perhaps here, this could kind of shake things up with that powerful cell there and at least get that rotation to calm down a bit as it moves much more now into Breckenridge County. So several things we're watching here, Kevin, trying to analyze what's happening here. We're not leaving you guys alone in Louisville and Indiana. We're watching the wind fields carefully there, especially in southern Indiana, as they are a little interesting at times, but nothing right now too alarming, but we'll need to watch it carefully.
Yeah, and, you know, that is another thing. As those develop to our south, there's nothing to steal the energy from those. So there's no reason that those will not continue to develop and to expand, which is going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of like everyone wants to be on top of this scenario here when the cells move through. So they all want to win, basically. So this one has a competition to it, and we'll see what happens. But we don't want these new ones to certainly get even stronger. But for those of you in LaRue County, Hart, and even Grayson County, this time southern and eastern Grayson County, just be weather aware. And we'll just watch how this trends carefully over the next 1 to 2 hours especially.
We've got a new tornado warning coming out for the Owensboro area. This is Davies, as well as Henderson, McLean, and Spencer counties of Indiana. That includes the Santa Claus, Indiana area. So this storm is going to move across Owensboro. Again, that will be next in line for us as we look to Perry County and then eventually into parts of Harrison County, Crawford County, perhaps. So something we're watching. Obviously, the one that has our greatest attention is the tornado that is confirmed that will continue to be moving to the east. Again, the Owensboro storm is radar indicated, the one that we've been watching throughout the night, the one that's to our south. I'll just move this down just a little bit to our camera tools we go. Let me just pan this over. It'll switch that warning for us as we move this, and you'll see the Hardensburg area remaining under that tornado warning. Again, confirmed and observed, and it's just now approaching that county border from Ohio County right into Breckenridge County. So as Brian pointed out, while this one has our attention because we know the history of it and we can see what it's doing, that's the beautiful part about our team. We're constantly analyzing the data of other places, making phone calls, aggregating the data, making an accurate forecast to move forward and delivering it all in one swoop here. So you're sort of seeing real time the way we work every day, but most days aren't quite this rambunctious, thankfully. You'll see that we have a lot of tools. You see the data going on just right behind me. This is where we see the damage reports combined with the current warnings that we have. Again, you can see that track almost just by looking at the tornado damage. We're looking at the debris field to see where we may see some of that debris. And then, of course, the reflectivity and the radar always on. And we have that always in front of us. So what we're looking at, a few things. Again, I'll go back to our tools. I mentioned that debris, sort of an important tool to use, and you can still see it. Again, still indicating that we could have this tornado on the ground, just about to move right into the Van Zant area. Again, that's far western Breckinridge County. You've got to be in your tornado safe place. We've been saying it time and again. You had time. Even though they're moving at 60 miles an hour to the north and east, you've had time to get in your tornado safe place. Lots of lightning still. We have not noticed a decrease in lightning across the area. Still plenty of the lightning, and that's likely to continue. On the velocity that we see, same. The rotation moving across the county line. On the reflectivity that we see, again, heavy rain, plenty of moisture in the atmosphere. There will be some flash flooding issues in places. Now, it's moving fast, and that's helping to alleviate the flooding issue. It's not helping to alleviate the wind or the rotation. And with that, we have the potential for that storm to move in, still producing the tornado that has caused so much damage already. We've mentioned it. We've shown it to you, and now it's time to get real to say, as this moves across Breckinridge County, we don't want to lose any life. We want to make sure that people stay safe. We want you to call loved ones that may be in this zone from Van Zant, south of Hardinsburg, north of McCoy. They have to be woken up. They may have gone to bed. Maybe they haven't seen the news the last couple of days. They didn't know it was an alert day. Now's the time to give them a shout and say, hey, you got to get up. If you're in a mobile home, you're in a bad spot. You've got to get out. You got to go to the neighbors, try to get low. But whatever you do, get out of the mobile home, get into a solid structure. If it has a basement, that's great. If it doesn't, stay on the lowest level. Let's go over to Brian.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Good points there. Again, get into the lowest level, but again, those interior rooms, even a closet, is a really good idea. Ryan tried to warn guys just last night. We were talking about how you just need to get out of a mobile home if you can for this kind of a setup here tonight. Now, you're looking at the radar's interpretation of all that rotation. You can certainly see where you got more of the purples, even a couple yellow spikes. That's when Ryan was talking about how he was seeing that debris ball that was showing up in the radar. Now, as that follows right in the middle of where that tornado warning is, as it moves into the Breckinridge County area, we're not seeing as strong of a signature, more of the lighter blues showing up, but still something we need to watch carefully as that continues to move to the northeast. I will say, Kevin, Storm Prediction Center is already highlighting that this is likely to be a significant tornado, likely that will be developing here out of Tennessee. I'm only going to mention that because right now there's not much that would shift its track at all. At least by angle, gives us much more time to track it. But certainly for those of you in the southern part of wave country, that is where we'll be watching off to the south there.
And it just goes to the conversation we had just a few minutes ago about those southern storms sort of stealing that energy.
Yeah. The more we can get some of that going here, that would be great. But unfortunately, some of those that are trying to steal it are moving right toward us.
Yeah, and that's the bad part.
Yeah.
So it'll be a constant flux as the night goes on of where the strongest storms develop. Right now in our area, it's the southernmost storms feeding off of those strong southerly winds coming in. Lots of moisture, lots of dynamics and thermal dynamics working against us with this. And that's why we have the tornado warnings down across parts of southern Breckinridge County. We also have Davies and Henderson and McLean and Spencer counties, too, under the tornado warning. That's outside of the viewing area, of course. Again, let me just allow me to show the velocity, but this really tells the story. We use it so often during severe weather outbreaks, and especially when we're tracking the rotation. This is the only warning we have. If people are watching, you're like, oh my gosh, Breckinridge County again, why? I know it sounds repetitive, but it's the only warning that's out there. And the fact is, all of us are under a threat tonight. This is the only warning. Not only is it the only warning, it's observed. We've had the tornado on the ground. It's now in Breckinridge County. You can see that rotation near Rockville. This is where it's going to continue moving off to the north and east. Should stay just south of Hardinsburg, so some good news there. It tends to be the most populated area, moving across a rural area. In fact, let me just zoom in. I'm going to leave the rotation on, and as we go back, I'm going to zoom in as we click that, and I'll try to point out some of the towns. I know there's not it's a pretty sparse area. I've been there many times. So there you see Rockville, Van Zant, there's Glendine, right along 105, just south of 261, close to the Dempster area, moving over toward Axtell. You start to get close to that, you're near the Rough River Lake area. Again, this is where we have the rotation. This is where it would be from Rockville to Glendine, right toward this is the border of Grayson County. So Breckenridge, this is Grayson. This is going to be moving right toward 105 and 108, right where it forks off. That is the zone. It's mainly south of 261. For folks in that area, you know exactly where we're talking about. And as we move, let me just go back to our camera and I'll pan it over. So as we move this, again, you'll see some other places sort of pop up. And there you see it. There's McQuady. That's going to continue moving. It's going to get close. I mean, McQuady is close to that. Axtell should be bound between the two. So that's a very concerning area that we see. So I see where a number of folks, if you're looking for shelters in the Breckenridge County area, remember, I mentioned the mobile homes are not safe places. Spent a lot of time over my childhood and in my adulthood down at Rough River Lake, so I know the area. I know on the lake especially, there are a lot of mobile homes. It's a place that you can take shelter at the state park, so you can go there in McDaniels, and the old courthouse in Hardensburg, Irvington Baptist Church, and the Cloverport Firehouse are all places that you can go to seek shelter in a safe place. It's getting close. You don't have a lot of time, by the way, because it's pretty much knocking on your door and it's moving at 60 miles an hour. So that's something that we have to be mindful of. You don't want to get caught trying to get to a safe place and having it move across you. The rain is heavy. It's going to slow you down, no doubt about it. Breckenridge, Grayson counties, it's observed. It's under a warning until 12 o'clock your time, 1 o'clock here in Louisville. That's another 15 minutes. Again, that's what we have going on. That is the only warning. I'm going to go back to our home view as we kick the radar back on to our camera view, and then home we go. And then we'll check in with Ryan Hoke coming up in just a minute, just to see if there are any other reports coming out, because today has been a violent day, especially with this storm that we're tracking. It certainly has caused some major problems. So let me just mention a couple of things here, and then we'll jump over to Ryan. Southern Indiana, there are no warnings at this point in the viewing area. You have heavy rain in places. Go south of the river, we have the tornado warning, not only for Grayson and extreme northern Breckenridge, which it's already passed, but back out toward the Owensboro area. We do have the tornado warning. Again, that one is radar indicated. Those are the warnings that we have in place. The damage that we've seen has been horrendous, right?
Yeah, at this point, it looks like that Ohio County is still just reporting those power lines down at this point. We're still trying to get some more damage information. We're likely going to be making some phone calls here real shortly to southern Breckenridge County here. I wanted to show you this image right here where it shows we have two distinct areas where debris may be on radar moving into Breckenridge County. The northernmost, we're not terribly confident on what that is, if that's another tornado or what's going on, but the second of those on the southern edge near Rockvale, that is absolutely tornado debris on radar. You need to be in your safe place. This is along the northern edge there of Grayson County. Kevin, I'm getting ready to make some phone calls here as we are just getting this into Breckenridge County. Want to make sure our first responders and our emergency personnel have some time to go through and figure out what is going on and what is on the ground before I give them a call here in just a moment's time.
Okay, we'll be checking back with all of our partners that we work with when severe weather happens to keep you updated. It is not an easy job, to be honest with you. We count on them, and at night it makes it even harder. And in fact, in some cases, there are a lot of emergency personnel who are risking their own lives to be out in the storm at a dangerous time where it can hardly be seen, to make sure we're relaying that information back. So you're getting it in real time as we continue with nonstop severe weather coverage. We had planned yesterday and earlier today, put the final sort of nails in the plan of what we would be doing. And regardless of the warnings, we said we're going to go on at midnight and stay on, especially on all of our digital channels and streaming channels, because at night people, you know, they're either coming home or they're waking up. And we've got to be able to make sure they know that this is what's actually happening. And this is what's happening. We've got the tornado warning for Breckenridge. Grayson is just about out of this, so no huge problem there. And we continue to track this across at least the southern half of Breckinridge County, mainly south of the Hardinsburg area. That's the only warning. The rest of us are under the tornado watch, and that's until 3 a.m. It's likely going to sort of get extended and sort of expanded as the night wears on. So the severe weather threat does not end at 3 a.m. is what I'm saying. This will continue into the early morning hours. Again, if you have a way to receive the warnings for your location, like the Wave 3 News weather app, the NOAA weather radio, then if you want to drift off and get some sleep, make sure that warning is able to get to you. When that alert goes off, turn the television on or log on to your device and we'll be there. So I just want to give you a heads up that it's going to be a long night. We're going to be tracking these storms. They're not all going to be severe. Not everybody's going to have wind damage, but we will have a few places that see some powerful storms. We've already seen it out to our west. We've had images coming in from northeast Arkansas, roofs peeled off of a nursing facility, 2 people dead there. We had a Dollar General store that I saw that was just crushed. I mean, it was just like the wind blew down and exploded it. We had in western Kentucky in Mayfield, the courthouse that was destroyed. This is, what is this?
Edwards.
This is Edwardsville, Indiana. Or in Illinois. This is Edwardsville, Illinois. And there you see the fire truck that says it. So some type of shopping complex. You see the construction, which is very business-like, where they have those kind of aluminum plates that hold the drywall. It just peeled the whole thing off. Look, I mean, when you look at how huge that place was, I mean, those are actual cars and ambulances out there. It's just ripped it all apart. So that's what we're dealing with in the terms of energy tonight. The atmosphere is on fire, and it's not going to take a whole lot to bring some of those winds down to the surface. It's why we've cautioned everyone across parts of Breckinridge County to be on standby in your tornado safe place. This storm itself has had a history of producing damage just like what you saw. Now, again, we go back into the storm to get the locations of where the strongest rotation is. So from Rockville to just south of Hardinsburg, we look at our tools, velocity, here we come. And you can see that rotation moving through sort of 2 areas, really. So it's a little wonky in where it's at. This appears to be it right here. So just south of Hardinsburg, just north of McCoy. Let's go back and see if the debris matches that. We'll be looking for something right here. It's a little displaced. And so we're seeing some scatter as we go through the beam. But nonetheless, in southern Breckinridge County, there's still great reason to believe that we have a dangerous tornado that's on the ground. We have a new tornado warning that's coming out. We'll go right to that. And again, this tornado warning is going to be for the same storm. It's being expanded. So this is for Hardin and Meade counties. It's just sort of getting it expanded out. This is confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado. It's on the ground. Again, we are tracking this. It's just now, we were looking at it, but it's about 7 miles south of Hardinsburg, moving to the northeast at 60 miles an hour. All right.
Hey, Kevin, we do have
Yeah.
some strike from Eton aimed right into that cell, and
Okay.
the base of it, you can certainly see, is illuminated right now by the lightning strikes that are taking place. We'll be watching that carefully, but again, it's illuminated there. We're also getting some spotter feeds coming in. If the newsroom or control room can hear me, I sent a link out to one of those live feeds. If you're able to help us out and maybe getting that on, I would appreciate that. That's one of our storm spotters, and we would like to get that on the air. That would help give valuable info for those downstream of this morning, Kevin.
Okay, and we're getting now reports of power outages across Breckinridge County. So again, a sign that damage is occurring within this storm. We've said it all along. There was no reason for us to believe it wasn't. It started in Arkansas. It moved across Tennessee, western Kentucky, central Kentucky. It's the same storm. It's been a monster. It's caused a massive tragedy in places. And this storm continues. You're looking Central City. This is down in our sister station WBKO in Bowling Green, showing some of the damage that occurred with this same storm as it moved through earlier. Just ripping the siding off of places. Homes and businesses have been damaged in a big way. And this damage is not all that impressive compared to some of the other that we've seen. So again, we can't stress enough. You have to be in your tornado safe place. That's the tornado warning Again, expanded now to include southern Meade and northern and western parts of Hardin counties. If you have family in southern Meade, if you have family near Vertrees up to Radcliffe, this is going to be just north of E-Town, you've got to make sure they know what's going on. Call them, wake them up, make sure they're tuned in. This storm means business. There's no slowing it down. It's going to continue to move until it runs out of energy. The only way it can run out of energy is by storms firing to the south, stealing some of its energy. And at this point, there's nothing great enough for that to happen, especially in this amount of time, because it's moving at 60 miles an hour. So simple mathematics would say that you're going to be under this storm across Breckinridge County, southern Meade, and into Hardin County. Now, as it continues to move past that point, maybe we'll be able to weaken it. It'll all depend what happens to the south. Can we rob some of that moisture? Can we rob some of that energy? Fact is, the wind energy is intense and continues as this pushes through. We're up on all of our social streams. We're streaming this broadcast, but we also need to hear from you. It's a two-way street during severe weather. We work the same way with the Weather Service, and we work this way with all of our viewers. Your reports, well, we don't want you to go out in it, but if you know something for certain, if it's happened to you or in your neighborhood, let us know. You can tweet us, you can Facebook us, whatever you need to do to get us that information. Call the newsroom. However, send us an email, but that's helpful. Now, again, we have to sift through those reports. It's not always the fastest, but what we're working with now is real-time information, and that is that we have a tornado that's on the ground. We have lives that could potentially be threatened by these storms moving through. It's ticked up again. You can clearly see where we have that rotation. South of Hardinsburg, approaching the Graysville area, south of Irvington, north of McCoy, this storm will continue to push right into the intersection of Hardin, Meade, and Breckinridge counties. Okay. That is what we're looking at. I see Ryan has some information coming in. What do you have?
Okay, we've got a live camera now looking at this storm in Breckinridge County from John Bettner. He set up a live camera in Custer, Kentucky, looking toward the west-southwest. And what you're seeing right now are lightning flashes in the distance as the storm approaches the location there. So we now have eyes on the storm. It's going to be hard to see because it's at night, but this is the best we can get you right now is this camera in night mode. Some impressive lightning there and a really good vantage view there, Kev.
Well, big thanks to John. He's been a great partner of ours for many years, and I know he helps everybody out, and we appreciate the real-time information and certainly the reports that he's provided over the many years that we've known him. But on a night like tonight, this really is a huge help, and we will certainly keep our eyes on this camera and all of our SkyTrack cameras that we have. So once again, we're looking at the storm. So you can see it from parts of northern Breckinridge, Meade, Hardin counties, all eyes aimed right here to this storm as it continues to move across southern Breckinridge County, past the Graysville area. Again, most of this is very rural, so it's not a huge population and huge density of people, but nonetheless, I mean, when you see the damage, again, I stress the damage that these storms have caused. And thankfully, this went far enough south of Hardinsburg. I mean, it missed the most populated city in the county, but it went just south of there. And odds are it's caused some problems as it's made its way. Back to the radar we go. That's the velocity. This is the radar. Heavy rain. There's not a lot of hail. You haven't heard us talking about hail tonight. This is a heavy rainmaker, but it's moving fast enough to sort of preclude any problems with flash flooding. But what it's not precluding is the wind. And we have a tremendous amount of wind energy. The tornado is on the ground. It's moving across southern Breckinridge County, and it will eventually cross into southern Meade and perhaps northern parts of Hardin County. That's why you have to be prepared in the lowest level, in the basement. When we look at this, it's not the only storm we're watching. Remember earlier, if you were tuned in, I said we're always scanning in the background. Brian Goods, keeping an eye on southern Indiana. Brian?
All right, Kevin, now I'm watching right now. This is going to be into the northeast side here, Jackson County to Jennings. Some weak rotation here, nothing too worrisome at the moment. There's no warning that is out for this. We'll be watching it carefully because it is still in the fringes there of wave country, moving into an environment that is just now starting to lose what we call its lid or its shield, if you will, that is now beginning to fade away. So that becomes a little more of a risk for it to try anyway to get a little more organized. But it's a pretty messy setup. And what I mean by that is it has several thunderstorms competing in that area, and I'm hoping that will keep any type of rotation a bit more disrupted. So for those of you in that area who are watching it in Louisville, obviously a lot of you right now watching are in Louisville, and we've had a lot of lightning strikes and some thunder. We're waiting to see how this is going to evolve as this moves out of the area and becomes a little more of what looks to still be a supercell, but we got to watch to see if we get kind of that S shape to it. And if we do, we may end up with both damaging winds and a potential for a tornado to develop along it. So we end up with a double threat that will happen with this. I already reached out to my mom in Bullitt County. I said, Mom, go ahead, get in your safe spot. My dogs are already pretty much in their thunder shirts already into Louisville right now, getting ready. So this is going to be one of those setups where it's going to be a pretty loud setup. In fact, the lightning count, not as tremendous as it was earlier, but it is certainly there. One last thing I wanted to show you, Kevin, is in looking at the tops of these thunderstorms, we can measure that as well. And this supercell was up there at about 45,000 feet at one point as it was moving across there into the western side of Breckinridge County. Notice, and that's where you get that darker brown, if not a little bit of red. Notice in the past couple of moments, though, it went back up again. And now let's see the latest scan I'm getting on that with the tallest tops there is coming in about 50,000 feet. And we only have to go really about a good 5,000 feet or so up before you start running into those wind fields that are going to be over 75 miles per hour. So even a heavy shower in this kind of scenario can bring some of these winds to the ground level. That's the reason why, even if you're not under a warning, you can still get some wind damage tonight out of these.
Well, and you could point out that we're getting closer to the radar, too, which will certainly, as you mentioned earlier, give us even better data as we get closer. Now, as it goes right across the radar, we lose the data because it goes out instead of straight up. So that'll be somewhat of a problem as this sort of takes aim very near the radar site, which is in Fort Knox. Again, the warning that we have is for Breckinridge, Hardin, and Meade. It is a tornado warning. It goes until 12:30. That's Central Standard Time. 1:30 our time here in Louisville. We're at 1 o'clock now, 30 more minutes on this warning. Plenty of lead time. That means you got time to get to the lowest level away from the windows. Now is the time for folks in southern Meade, northern parts of Hardin County. Even if you're in far eastern Breckinridge County, you're just waking up, you're hearing the wind, the thunder, the lightning, and you're like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, you got a tornado. It's bearing down on you. That's what's going on. You've got to get to the lowest level right now. You don't have a lot of time. I'm going to play this so you can see the general motion of the storm. Moving, super fast. This is moving at 60 miles an hour. And as this storm continues in that movement, the warning, the polygon that we have drawn is about 40,000 people affected by this one warning. All of us are affected by the threat of severe weather. This is the most imminent. Let me stop the radar view and we'll again take a close view of where we have the rotation showing up. And we'll look to see if we have any type of, I'm going to use the scope. And we'll go, it should be very close to Stenettville here. There it is. So that's the rotation. That's where we're seeing, Brian pointed out, the tops of that storm, 50,000 up, huge thunderstorm. Airplanes would never think about flying through that. You go around those types of storms, the winds just shear the whole thing apart. So what we have is very powerful winds, a lot of motion up and down in that thunderstorm. With that said, if we can tap into those horizontal winds that are blowing like crazy, heavy rain will do it. That'll bring those winds right down to the surface. And as that happens, we get the straight line winds, and obviously we have enough rotation in the atmosphere to cause that to spin. And that's the reason we have the signature like this on the velocity. It's also the reason we've had this tornado on the ground for miles, what may turn out to be hundreds of miles. We should look that up, how far it was from this point to back toward Jonesboro, Arkansas. That's a far track. And this storm has pretty much been on the ground since then. So Stenettville, it's moving past you. Irvington, just south of you. This is going to cross over into southern Meade County. It'll go south of Brandenburg. It should also get close to the Radcliffe area, something we'll have to watch closely. That's the velocity. Let me take that off and we'll pop on the debris. Now, I want to take that off, go back to the tools. Here comes the debris. In fact, I'll just do it in the scope, same way. Again, let me just pop this on. Should be very close to where we saw that rotation. There's a little bit, but not defined. So at this point in the game, there's no huge defined debris signature that we would look for. You'd see that blue sort of showing up very close to that rotation. This could be it, but it's tough to tell. All right, so it's not defined as it was. With that said, I know Ryan just got off the phone with some folks over there. What are they saying? Nothing's better than a report.
Actually, 285 miles is the answer to your question from Jonesboro up to just west of Bullitt County there.
Wow.
So we'll get on the phone here in a few minutes with some folks, let them gather some more information for us.
Okay.
Just got word in that apparently the governor is planning on doing a presser at 5 a.m.
Okay.
Coming up in regards to that damage that we've had there in Western Kentucky. We've got a few hours, but just kind of a heads up. That's when our sunrise show normally would start anyway, but just FYI that we will likely hear from the governor later on this morning.
Yeah, well, we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here all night right through that time, so you're stuck with us tonight. Thanks for inviting us in, and we'll get you through this even as these storms continue to roll through. Again, I just have to caution folks, southern Meade, northern Hardin. I know it sounds repetitive, but you've got to be in your tornado safe place. Again, this storm now radar indicated, so I'm hesitant to say that this storm is no longer on the ground when we looked at the debris signature, but it very well could be at any time. So this is, again, the tornado warning continues until 1:30 Louisville time. We still have 25 more minutes on this. I'm going to go back to a wider view of the radar because I want to point out